Welcome back, everyone, to Goody and Johnny Mo with the movies. Goody and Johnny Mo here, bringing you episode 56. Tonight, we are going to be looking at Top Gun Maverick, the 36-year sequel.
Yeah,
Right? 36-year sequel
86 to
to the
2022.
original
Top
1986 Top Gun film by Tony Scott. And unfortunately, Tony passed away a few years ago.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he passed away. And what did we just say? Did this one?
Kaczynski,
Right? Joseph,
Jay Kaczynski.
Jay Kaczynski.
Well, there's a
There's a J name.
it starts with a J.
I think it's Joe. I think it's Joe Kaczynski. He's done a couple of films before. He did Oblivion with Tom Cruise back in 2013. So
Oh,
they
that
have
was
a
a
little
Tom
history.
Cruise movie? Oh, I didn't know that. I've never even heard of that movie.
It was like a futuristic film, like post-apocalyptic.
With Tom Cruise?
Tom Cruise, yeah, starred in it. Yeah.
I'll have to check that out. Boy, we got to do our beer.
So yeah, before we get to anything tonight, beer of the night, Johnny Mo, lead us.
I'm going to
lead us into
start
that.
with something that I've only had for the first time this week. It's a Kolsch beer from Gaffel, which is, what does it say? Kolsch beer brewed traditionally in Cologne, Germany. Product of Germany since 1908.
I feel like you'll try any German beer, no matter what it is.
Yes and no. I do not like what do I call it?
Hefeweizen?
Hefeweizen beer. There's some well, not Belgian isn't Germany. I don't really like Belgian beer, but that's not Germany. But yeah, there's some like those like really wheat. I think they're like weedy beers, and I'm not a big fan of those. But this was this I had never seen this before.
Okay.
It's something, and I love going to the distributor, and you go to the same distributor over and over again. But like I feel like they always try to put something new in the refrigerator that you don't see that often, almost like a rotation. Like you're always going to see,
Your traditional.
but every now and then you see something like and it's there cold, waiting there for you. So I picked that. So I picked this up, and I actually do enjoy it.
All right. Tonight I am drinking a nice local beer by us. It's a Blue Point in my Blue Point glass here. It's Blue Point Brewery's their Blueberry Ale. I don't mind a fruity beer every now and then. I get made fun of for it quite often.
I hate fruity beers,
And
I love blueberries.
But you don't really have this that much.
I don't have very few fruity beers of any kind.
This is one of the better blueberry beers I've ever had. I do enjoy this quite a bit. This is one. This is something that Blue Point sells year round. I do tend to get this more in the summertime. It's refreshing. It's light, nice and easy to drink.
I think one of the only fruity beers I might drink might be Omegang's Three Philosophers, but it's flavored with cherries.
Yeah, but I wouldn't consider that a fruity beer.
Yeah,
though.
usually.
There's like a hint of that, but that's
Yeah,
not like,
it's not a cherry beer.
No.
But it's got cherries in it. But most, I think, fruity beers that you find, a lot of them are citrusy, like either with oranges or
Some of them can be.
or
Well, if it's overpowering,
grapefruit.
if it's overpowering and smacks you in the face, it can be a bit much.
And that I don't like. I don't like the citrusy beers, and it's funny because like I love oranges and I love grapefruit, but I don't like them in my beer.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. So with that,
anyhow.
cheers to all the listeners and viewers out there. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, guys, just remember that there are going to be heavy spoilers in this.
Heavy spoilers.
Maverick did just come out last week. We got to see it on preview night, that Thursday night. This
Where did
broke...
we go see it?
Sable.
We saw it in Sayville?
Yeah, Sable.
I can't remember.
This movie broke the 4-day box office record for Memorial Day weekend release.
Really?
Yep.
Ever?
Like crazy, right?
I'm curious if that's adjusted for inflation, though.
I would say not. I would say just current market numbers.
And that's surprising too, because I'll be honest with you, I feel like going to the movies these days, like I just feel like because most theaters redid their seats so that there's less seats, and they're more comfortable and they're almost like lounge chairs. It's back in the day, every movie theater was just crammed with these seats.
Right.
You're right on top of each other, and rows and rows and rows. And now I feel like there's so many less seats in a movie theater, but the theaters are still not packed. Like how many movies have we gone to where there's not that opening weekend?
But you
or
have to. But
not
you
that many
also.
people.
But keep in mind too, when you and I go to a film, typically we are going to the Thursday night, the preview night. A
Okay.
lot of nights. There are some nights where we tend to go on a Friday night,
And there's more people there.
and there's more people. Yeah, but. And so we're going to Sable also, which is not one of your big chain theaters. It's a mom and pop local theater.
I just feel that I don't know. I feel like prices may have gone up, but number of seats being filled has gone down. I don't know.
The movie's selling somewhere because it's making a lot of money.
It's selling somewhere, that's for sure.
Yeah,
Wow, I was surprised. I didn't realize
yeah.
It
This
made that much money.
it made a lot. It made I think over 150 million in its opening weekend. It's already grossed over.
U.S. or worldwide?
That was U.S.
That was U.S. Okay.
It's grossed over 500 million worldwide already. It had
Wow.
It had one of the best, if not the best, second week drop ever.
What do you mean by best drop?
So the amount that it made,
Drop
so
the
the
most
percentage,
or drop the
percentage
least?
dropped the least. So
Drop the least.
it's one of the second best drops ever
Okay.
between week 1 and week 2, percentage wise.
Okay.
And it's
So
like
it held.
yeah, it held strong, and I think it's going to hold for a little bit because this was a fun movie. This was fun. It had good action. It was well paced. The flying sequences are incredible.
Yeah.
So much better than the original 1986 movie. And I mean, listen, Tom Cruise does a couple of roles really well. He's done his Mission Impossible roles for a while. Mm-hmm. Those he's done very, very well. This, I could see them turning this into a third film at some point in time. I don't know if they will.
I don't know if they
and
will.
I don't think they should.
But they certainly could. I think they should wait a little bit. Maybe
Yeah.
not 30 years.
Maybe not 30 years.
But I think they should wait a little bit because I mean, it's not like one of those movies that leaves you with a cliffhanger or leaves you like say, oh, they're setting up a sequel. It's just
Right.
it's just a concept and a character that you could keep going with on its own. I mean, to me, this film was.
Well, listen, when they did the
completely
first one in '86, the ending of that film doesn't lead you to believe that they're going to make a sequel.
No, and they certainly could have, and they just never got around to it.
Right, and I think, and I know for a while they tried getting a sequel, and Cruise was heavily involved, and I think they were waiting on him, or he was waiting to find a really good script, a really good story to pull him back into this.
So oddly enough, as it turns out of all the movies I've seen from the 80s, and I've seen more movies from the 80s than any other decade, which is unfortunately probably to my detriment, being a movie lover, because
Just stop it.
I hate
Stop
the
it.
80s.
Stop hating on the '80s.
I had never seen the original Top Gun.
Mm-hmm.
And then people go to me, oh, you're a movie guy. What do you mean you've never seen Top Gun? I was like, well, I'm an actual all-inclusive movie guy. I'm not stuck in movies from 1977, which is when Star Wars came out, because you can divide movie history into in one line, before Star Wars and after Star Wars. That is the dividing line.
Is that really a thing?
I'm making it a thing. I'm telling you, Star Wars changed everything. To the point where today you're either someone who has really never seen a single movie earlier than 1977, or you've embraced that and you've seen a lot of movies from before 1977. I'm the person that started watching movies in the 70s, and back in the 70s, you watched all movies from all decades. They were really around. So for me, it's tough because I'm watching movies from the 10s, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, zips, 10s, and now the 20s. And I'm willing to watch any movie from that entire span. Not just great movies and good movies, but I'll even watch, some horrible movies too. And not just from the United States, but from other countries as well.
You do foreign films.
I do foreign films as well. So I got to pull from so many things. And at the end of the day, I'm going to miss something somewhere for sure, because you can't see every single film. But when someone tells me, "Oh, you never saw Top Gun, or you never saw, this other movie from the '80s or this other movie from the '90s," like, well, yeah, okay, not quite the end of the world, because I've seen a gazillion other movies from
Yeah.
these other decades that half
Well,
the people never even heard of, that would be considered required viewing for someone who loves film.
That's yes, that aspect I understand where you're coming from with that. However, I was surprised because it's such a pop culture film, and you typically
Yeah.
don't miss those.
I usually don't, but truth be told,
and it's certainly not for 36 years.
There are so many pop culture films
Yeah.
from the '80s, like there's just so many,
which is why it was good.
And it's so I'll give you a funny comparison. I have this book that I keep on my nightstand. That's been on my nightstand for over 10 years, if not more. It's a little hardcover book that came out. Well, actually, it's a really thick hardcover book, and it's 1,001 movies you must see or should see before you die. And it starts off from the teens, 1910s, and it goes all the way to, I think, the early 2000s. I probably had the book for close to 20 years, I think. In my opinion, the book is a little too heavily geared towards movies post Star Wars. Like, there's more movies in there from the 80s than there are from the 30s. And it's like, no, it shouldn't be. Because I feel that the older movies, like, it's the 4-star classics. But
Right.
that's it. And there's a lot of old 4-star classics. But it's like, you look at all these movies from the 20s to the 70s, and it's like, almost every one is a 3.5, 4-star classic. But then you start getting to those 80s to today, and it's like, yeah, there's some 4-star movies in there, but not that many.
No, it's few and far between.
But then there's, a lot of 3.5 stars and a lot of 3 stars, a lot of and it's just like, all right, like, the quality of film in this later part is not comparable to the other part. Because one, there's not every 4-star classic in there. And two, like, if you, like, the 3.5-star movie from 1945 is 10 times better than the 2.5-star movie from 1985 that they put in there, and it's definitely much more required viewing. But it's probably geared more towards the modern film viewer, so they had to put there's just more current films in there. But at the end of the day, I still want to see all of them.
Yeah.
I'm closing in on 450 of the 1,001. I'm closing in on it. So, as it turns out, Top Gun
It should be on that list.
is one of the movies from 1986, from the 80s, that's
You could
in that.
Finally check
I
that
can
off.
check that off. But the last movie I saw Top Gun probably 2 weeks ago.
You literally saw that right a day or two before
Yeah,
we saw
literally.
the sequel.
And so there was another movie in there that I just happened to finish watching today that's also in there. It's a movie called Gentlemen Prefer Blondes from 1953, an iconic Marilyn Monroe film. So all the people that are saying, I can't believe you haven't seen Top Gun, half of them are like, should be. They all should be saying, I can't believe you haven't seen Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. But the other half, they're all going, I don't even know what that is. Like, they've never even heard of it. Like, they don't even know that that's a movie I should have seen. And that's a very popular movie. It's not a great movie, but it's one of those iconic films that it is constantly mentioned. Marilyn Monroe's song in there, Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend, is a famous skit that
Right.
is endlessly
I know it's from that
parodied
movie.
and
Yeah.
things like that. So it's like, so while I'm watching Top Gun, I'm watching Gentlemen Prefer Blondes 3 days later, and it's all good. But it's like, but I get there's a ton of movies from the 50s that there are some people that know movies from the 50s are going to say that I can't believe you haven't seen Gentlemen Prefer Blondes.
you
Well, now I
definitely-
have.
You definitely have like the cinephiles, right? Which I would probably say you're in that
Right.
category.
That-
and then there's like your general audience
Right.
moviegoer,
Right.
which for the most part they're going to see films within their lifetime.
Right.
Maybe one decade before, but
Maybe.
not going
Things
too
that- right.
far past that.
Right, and that's what it just comes down to. Like, there are so many films that I want to see. Now, and as it turns out, I did a count. I had seen 60 films from 1986, and now
That's got to be the majority of films that were released that year.
well,
I
there's
can't
a
imagine.
lot of
Well,
films. There's a lot of
I'm
films.
saying
that were
domestic.
released.
Domestic
domestic.
films.
But
You know, like how
I
many
had seen
domestic
I
films
had
were
seen
released?
60 films from 1986, much to my detriment. I'm sure. I'm sure there's a
Much to my
that's a
detriment.
good there's a good 30 in there that I could probably live without ever seeing. But Top Gun was number 61.
There you go.
You know, but it's funny though, and just as many for probably 1985 and 1987. But it's funny when you kind of look at all, when you look at the films that I've seen. I'm like, so many of those films are popular, or whatever,
Yeah.
like movies like Stand and Deliver and things like that. It's just like, it's like, all right, now I saw Top Gun.
Now, the funny part about this film is that Top Gun Maverick was supposed to be released, I believe, at some point in 2021.
Because of a COVID thing,
And I think
it was delayed.
And I think they delayed it because there wasn't a lot of like people were slowly going back to the movies at this point in time.
The film was probably made, and they were just delaying the release.
The movie
'cause
was completed, like
they
it was
wanted-
ready to be
they were-
released.
They wanted to probably. They said we'll make more money if we release it later.
And they just basically kept waiting and waiting, and they said,
Now it's
and
time.
then at some point, like in like late 2021, I think it was like August, September, something like that. They said
Screw it,
Memorial Day
let's do it
weekend,
Memorial Day weekend.
2022.
And I
And
can
I'll
tell you
tell
right
you
now,
what.
there is somebody there somebody at that
Someone just
studio
got a promotion.
that just earned their big time
Yep.
bonus, and they were just like, I knew
Yeah.
it. I knew
And it was, I mean, just amazingly done. I still can't get over the flying sequences and how they filmed it because
Now
this-
I had heard that Tom Cruise is a pilot,
Tom Cruise does have a piloting license. He can
and-
pilot a plane. He can pilot
and
a helicopter.
And I think that the scenes where you see him flying, physically see him, I think he's flying.
I think he flew the single engine prop plane.
He like when they show the plane in the distance doing all this stuff, that's probably not him. But when you actually see him in the cockpit in those scenes, that's probably him
I don't
really
think
flying.
From what I had read, I think it's Paramount.
Because you can just
right?
intercut between the scenes of him flying and the scenes that are being.
Who was the production company? It was Paramount, I think. Right?
Oh, that I don't remember.
I think it's Paramount. If I'm pretty sure it was him. So they were paying the Navy, I think $11,000 an hour, and that might have been per plane, per jet,
To rent the jet.
basically to like
Rent the
use yes, right. So these F-18s that they were flying, and from what I had read, I think it was the actors go up in these jets, which they hadn't really done in the '86 film. A lot of that stuff I think was filmed on the ground. But they filmed the actors in the jets with the actual like naval pilots that were flying them. But how they set up the cameras made it look like these guys were flying the
But
planes.
it was really the other guy.
But it was really them.
Yeah.
So, and I'm pretty sure that there are a couple of scenes where these guys hit like incredible G forces, and you see their faces kind of like peeling back, and I'm pretty sure that's the real deal.
Yeah.
When they're flying.
Now I figured like in 1986, I think okay, so for me, I get the appeal of the 1986 movie because I think you're getting some flight scenes and jet scenes and
Yeah.
that probably had never been taken to that level on screen before. So I kind of get that.
They had a lot of difficulty filming that back then. I actually just read like an article, and they were talking about this, how like Tony Scott was. They went to like oh god, what naval base was it? They went somewhere. They had these jets flying. They were filming from the ground, but the angle that they were filming it had like everything. Like every time they kept like playing the dailies, they kept like rolling and looking at the footage. Like it looked okay. It wasn't wowing them from the angles that they were at, so they had to like try to keep getting higher and higher. And at one point, they got to the highest point they could, and they basically were telling the naval pilots, "Okay, how low can you fly over us?" And they started trying to get them to come like down a little bit lower and fly over their cameras as they were filming.
Right.
And that's how I think they got some of their shots. I think some of the stuff with them in the cockpits doing the moves, that might have been on a simulator. I don't know. I don't know the extent of that, but it almost looks that way.
Yeah, because I mean, if you compare that movie to like other films before that. I mean, not a lot of other films before that were focusing on the visual of what there was the dog fighting and
Right.
and if they weren't able to do it that
But most
well.
of the time, it was like literally a guy with a camera on the ground
Yeah.
filming a plane in the distance flying. It
Yeah.
wasn't so much, like you said, about the dog fighting itself.
Right, and a lot of it was also, they used a lot of stock footage back in the day,
Right.
especially if it took place during wartime. They would just,
Yeah, you're not recreating it with real planes.
yeah, exactly. It's big difference between watching like a movie with John Wayne, where you see him in his plane, and then all of a sudden there's a cuts to stock footage of somebody shooting down a Japanese plane. They didn't really go for that. So I mean, I get the appeal of the '86 film, which of course had to me, in my opinion, a very '80s soundtrack.
Oh yes, it did.
Which,
but
if
sorry,
you like
in a
'80s
good
movies,
way.
you're gonna love that.
I'm sorry.
And I hate '80s music.
Danger
so-
Zone. Come on.
And oh my God, how many times did they play that song? It was like at least five times, and I'm just like, all right, enough. Flying to the danger zone. And I'm
they
just
gotta,
like,
they gotta drill that right in your head, baby. Come on.
And then, of course, to me, Tom Cruise's character is a little cocky, and it's like, it's there are.
But from my understanding, pilots are
they are cocky,
and
you almost
you're
wanna,
talking about these guys are like the best.
Yeah, you almost
around
want
the
to,
country.
you almost want to punch them out half the time because they walk around like in the bar.
They're
and
top-
like,
they're top shit.
It's
Yeah.
like we're
The top dogs.
and like and they go by their call signs. They don't, you're not Bill or Bob or John. You're Maverick and Kitty Cat. And,
No, I'm just kidding. Come on.
Somebody's kid.
Iceman, Goose.
And it's just like if you're the
Merlin.
normal guy sitting at that bar, you want to punch these guys out. But they're like and you don't want to say anything because they're so cocky, like they're gonna come down on you, like you're just a civilian.
They're gonna come after you.
And you want to punch them even more. But so in that movie, I was surprised to see. Well, I think Tom Skerritt in that movie, Tom Skerritt was around.
He was the instructor.
He was the instructor.
He was
He was
for Top
older.
Gun.
Tom Skerritt's been around. Tom Cruise, this is
one of his big first, first headliners.
I was
his
going to
first big
say,
headline.
I think it's after Risky Business.
It's after Risky Business.
It's
yeah.
a couple of years
But
after Risky Business.
But I feel like this
think.
movie put him on the map because Risky
Yeah.
Business was a decent film.
Yeah, but teen comedy.
Teen comedy,
type
right.
thing,
Not
this
like
was more like
adult pulling that age group in
right.
there.
So then you got Val Kilmer in there, who
Yep.
this is probably pretty early in his career.
Yep, I think so.
Meg Ryan,
Meg Ryan's in this.
I think that's really early in her career. Like I don't think she was a household name yet.
Anthony Edwards.
And Anthony Edwards,
Before ER, way before ER.
and believe it or not, Tim Robbins.
Tim Robbins.
He's got a
he
very
plays
small
Merlin.
role. I was
He's
surprised
in
to
like
see him in there.
he's in like the beginning of the film, and then he's at
Yeah.
the end of the film.
Yeah, and then of course the girl, what's her name? Kelly McGillis.
Kelly, yeah. And then Michael Ironside. Some people will know him. He's had a lot of side roles before. He played the other like Tom Skerritt's like right hand guy.
So I mean, overall, I thought the movie was okay. Like it didn't blow me away. Not really my cup of tea, but I understand its place
In pop culture.
In pop culture,
I mean,
cinema.
that's really what it is.
Well,
Like,
no,
it's-
and
it's
that's
for
one of the things.
you know?
One of the main reasons to see all of these pop culture films is that you get and understand the references as they come up, and you can even contribute to the conversation. So when somebody says to me, do you feel the need for speed? I know what they're talking about. And maybe
But now you know.
now I know for sure. Maybe even I have a comeback now. Like but, I can quote something else from a movie that they put them down. One thing that was surprising in the original Top Gun is that Tom Cruise does not get Top Gun.
Yes, he does not. And if you're watching
So
the
not,
movie for the
not
first
quite
time,
a storybook ending.
it's
Val Kilmer
Kilmer gets it.
is the better pilot, and he gets it.
And you don't know,
probably
like, is
rightfully
it
so.
and is it deserving? You could probably really debate that, shooting that back and forth over who really is the better pilot.
Yeah, but it's like one of those things where
Well, if Goose doesn't die,
Kilmer has got like the talent, but he also has the regimen. Whereas Tom Cruise,
I think
has
Cruise has
more
more skill, but
he
I
has
think
more raw talent,
yeah,
but
he's reckless.
he's reckless,
Yeah.
so that brings him down, right? And I think that brought him far enough down for Val Kilmer to take it down.
Yeah, and I think too, like you could probably debate this quite a bit, but if Goose doesn't die, does Tom Cruise Maverick have enough to win Top Gun?
Right.
And it's a debate you can have on and on, but I think that's it's always a fun one to talk about. But
So-
one of the things that I loved in this movie, in Maverick, is that you see the friendship that Maverick still has with Iceman. Like they developed a lifelong friendship.
Yeah, there wasn't a grudge there.
No, there wasn't. And like so it was like that scene
It
at
was-
the end of the original film where they're like hugging each other out, like, you could be my wingman anytime.
It's actually like mature.
Yeah, it's like they grew, the two of them grew together. They grew up. Well, mostly probably Iceman more than Maverick.
Yeah.
But it seems like Iceman, because he elevated his status in the military, he was a career military man.
General and all that.
I think he went to be an admiral. I think.
Or right, maybe
Yeah, I think he
even
was.
an
I think he
admiral.
was an admiral, and it seems like it's mentioned a couple of times that Iceman's gotten Maverick out of trouble multiple times.
And he probably needed somebody to get him out of trouble.
And I like that it's addressed in the Maverick film, that because at the end of Top Gun, it seems that Maverick is going to go back and he's going to teach in Top Gun. And he addresses that in this movie, and he
Yeah.
says, he only lasted a couple of
Right,
months,
and that's
washed-
one
and
of the
then-
that's one
and
of the
then
things
left.
that okay. So diving deep into Top Gun Maverick, there's at least two things that are at the core of the film that I don't get. So if he became a Top Gun instructor and he couldn't handle it, and he dropped out of being an instructor,
Right.
what was he doing for the last 30 years that in 30 years later makes him the number one frickin' pilot to go to train these people?
Well,
How is he at the top of his game if he's never advanced, and he, like, I'm expecting that,
Well, he
I
did.
expected that he was going to be a Top Gun instructor for 20 years, and then he retired. Now they bring him out of retirement, and then you find out that he failed. So what did he do?
So, well, one, he's elevated his status. He's a captain now. He wasn't a captain in the original Top Gun.
Okay, but he went to a captain.
I think he was a lieutenant or something like that. But now he's a captain. So he did elevate his status, not too much higher, but captain nonetheless. And when we see him in this film, he's obviously being like a test pilot for some of these more advanced advanced crafts.
Okay, so he's
right?
still. Oh, right. Okay, so
He's still flying, and he's still
doing-
pushing the limits
Okay.
of what these planes can do.
Okay.
So I think that is kind of what you're seeing. But there's also, too, he's got that hangar that we see him at one point. I'd see him at 2 points in the film where he's working on that prop plane. So he's still flying to a degree.
Right. Okay.
I don't think that ever stopped. But he's obviously still in the military. It's not like he ever got out of it. I mean, what else is he going to do? He's going to fly.
Right. Okay. All right. So, all right. I think that. Okay. I get that. I think I was just thrown by the fact that, like, he didn't make it as a Top Gun instructor.
Well, the only reason why he's
the
only reason why he's
2
back
months?
there is because the one guy in the meeting when Maverick first gets to Top Gun, he's like, guys, like what am I doing here? And the two of that, like John Hamm's character and the older guy that's with them, his right hand, they're basically looking at him like, well, they're called orders. So at this point that, like, Iceman basically brought Maverick in to teach these kids. And it's basically it's slightly different because this time around, like, it's not a Top Gun competition. Like, this is a real life mission.
It's a mission, yeah.
And I actually like that they did that. We didn't have to go through seeing these guys jockeying around for who's going to be the best.
Well, yeah, because ultimately, then it would have been too much of a remake.
Yes.
Of the first
And I
one,
think
which it didn't.
it didn't need to
I
be.
wouldn't want to see a remake of the first one.
No.
I want to see something in the same vein but different, and I think we got.
I think they got that.
Yeah.
I think we got it very well done. I think this movie hit just enough nostalgia that it didn't bash you over the head with it, that some other films try to do when they're trying to do a sequel or a slight remake or a reboot of something from 20, 30 years ago.
Well, they did give a decent number of flashbacks, which I think they were like, we got to do that just in case there's people in the theater
Yeah.
that haven't seen the original.
But it wasn't a. But I didn't think it was a ton. Again, I didn't think it was like
Too-
everything. Saying, hey, remember when this happened? Hey, remember when this happened? No,
Yeah.
like they hit like the one or two core emotional scenes.
Okay.
You know of Miles Teller in this movie plays Goose's son. Okay, I think Bradley or something like that, right? And his nickname is Rooster. So you see Rooster as a kid sitting on top of the piano when Goose is playing Great Balls of Fire.
Yeah.
And like him and Maverick are singing it together. It's a little flashback, and Maverick gets that when he's watching Rooster play Great Balls of Fire to this generation of pilots in the bar, and I thought that was like a really great nod to the original. That these two, like because he was old enough where like you feel like he would probably remember that as a kid with his
Yeah,
dad
maybe,
playing
yeah.
that in a bar, and it seems like it wasn't the first time that he had done this, because it seems like everyone was joining in, singing along, and he was jamming on the piano.
Yeah.
So like I thought like that was really, really well done. Just like that a lot. Some really cool so Jennifer Connelly plays this girl Penny.
Yeah, now that's the second part.
Okay, go.
That's the part. I feel that Jennifer Connelly's character was thrown in there because they needed a love interest. Mm-hmm. And I feel like it just wasn't done very well. I felt like that was the weakest part of the movie. And I felt like it was so, like it didn't make sense to me that he would know her already. But you told me something earlier.
So
They made okay.
go
To
ahead.
me, they made it sound like this is a girl that he had a relationship in the past,
yes.
and he gets called to Top Gun to do instructing, and it just so happens that she took a bartending job at the bar by the
Well,
school.
does she own the bar? I thought she owned the bar.
I don't know, or she either way, but
I
she
thought she
owns
owned
the
the
bar.
bar.
What are the odds of that? Because, like, he was dating Kelly McGillis when she
With the first Top Gun, right? Yeah.
And then he was a Top Gun instructor for 2 months after that, and then he left. So he didn't meet her, in my opinion. It made it sound like he didn't meet her there because he hasn't been there in 30 years.
Right.
He met her wherever he was, somewhere else. And now all of a sudden she just happens to be owner or working at the bar in Top Gun, and now they have this relationship. It's like this. It's not like they met for the first time. And I'm like, that to me seemed very, very convenient. Like it almost to the point like that doesn't even make sense.
So this character of Penny actually is a throwback to the original, and her name is mentioned at least once, if not twice. I think one of the times is actually mentioned by Meg Ryan when the two of them are talking, when Meg Ryan's talking with Tom Cruise in the original. But it seems that Maverick dated Penny or had a relationship with her at some point before he was even at Top Gun. Like
Before
that all
he was
happened.
even at Top Gun.
And it was, and I'm pretty sure it's a military officer's daughter, and it
Okay.
didn't end well or something like that. So
So their relationship is over 30 years old.
right,
Okay, and to me, I think Tom Cruise is a lot older than Jennifer Connelly.
yes, but he doesn't look old. Like I think he's 59. I think like they actually just said something. I don't know if it was like birthday just came up, but he's 59 years old.
Yeah, but
The man doesn't look 59,
Right.
But Jennifer Connelly also looks really young too.
Yeah, she looks really young. To me, it looks like a slightly older, not a slightly older guy had a relationship with a slightly younger girl. So for me
Right.
to believe that the relation like what happened 30 years ago. I mean, how old was Tom Cruise's character supposed to be in the original Top Gun?
Obviously, I think it's in his probably mid-20s, I would say.
Right. So then okay, so she had to have been like
Early 20s.
18.
Or maybe even less. Yeah, maybe
You know
even
what I-
younger.
But
I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on what his age. Maybe he is supposed to be in his like early 20s, or even I don't think he was supposed to be in his late teens. I would have said well, they were drinking in the bar, so I would
Yeah.
think they would be at least 21.
And that being said, Jennifer Connelly is always good to look at. Like she's She
She's
looked. She's a
beautiful.
beautiful
Oh,
woman,
she's
and
beautiful, and she looked
she
great.
looked good in this. It just seemed.
No, you know what? If there's one nitpick that I have of the film, it's probably the relationship was slightly forced. But
Yeah.
knowing that Penny's name, her character name, is from the original film, I can let this slide a little bit more so. If I didn't know that,
Yeah.
I would have had more of a problem with
You
it.
know what though? But the thing is, I don't know that. Like with all the things that like with all the things that they kind of bridge with flashbacks and stuff, they don't explain that at all. Like they,
No, I think it's just something you have to accept
yeah, you just have to accept
because
that
there was
he
no
had this relationship,
flashback.
and right, you know, so
Like
to me,
there's no visual. It's just her name is literally mentioned in passing.
and I think that would have helped make the logistics of how this happened better because they literally just make it sound like you know he shows up at the bar and oh my god I can't believe you're here, you know it's been so long, and I'm like.
Right.
Out of all the bars in all the world, that's the one she's at. Okay, but okay. So interesting.
I don't disagree with you. I think that's
Yeah.
probably the one aspect of the film
Oh,
that they threw in
one
just to have
thing we
a.
didn't talk about at all, which is very odd, because after I had seen Top Gun Maverick, one of my grandchildren asked me and said, you know, is there a post-credit scene? I said, no, but there's a pre-credit scene, and they had no idea what I was talking about. Like, what's a pre-credit
Oh, okay,
scene?
yeah.
I go, a pre-credit scene is something that happens before the credits.
Are you talking about this movie,
This
Maverick?
movie, this
Okay,
Top
yeah.
Gun
So
Maverick.
when we sat down,
Yeah, Top
yes.
Gun Maverick has a pre-credit scene where the screen just opens up and Tom Cruise is, you know, talking to the audience
As himself.
as
He's-
himself,
yep.
like you know, I guess thanking everybody
He was for coming out to the.
coming out.
And you know what? Like he was. I mean, the whole marketing campaign for Top Gun Maverick was go see this movie in the theaters. It's only being released in theaters. It's not being released digitally at home. You know, you have to go see this movie in
Yeah.
theaters. And they were pushing it. And he thanked everybody for it. He thanked the crew that worked on this film, as well as the military that you know helped them to make this film
Oh,
work
sure.
and look as authentic as possible.
Because if you look at the credits in both movies, there's the actual credits.
Yes.
There's tons of military advisors and you know
I think-
dialogue.
But the amount of filming,
advisors
so
and
they had
pilots. And
they
special
had-
thanks to you know these divisions of the military and
Right.
you know, it's just so yeah they were not just doing it on their own. It was a lot of technical expertise on those both of those.
They had a lot of footage of, I think, flying, if I'm not mistaken. Like I'm saying,
Yeah.
a lot, like much more so. Like I'm going to say a number as like 800 hours. I don't know if that's like completely accurate from what I read, but I'm telling you right now, if that's like how exaggerated that number is, but it's a lot of hours that they had up in the air with these guys
To make this movie.
to make this movie.
Yeah.
But I think, hey, listen, you know, I'm not going to talk about Tom Cruise's extracurricular activities and
Or
all of
his religious and
his like the
political
beliefs, all that stuff. I'm not going to.
What are his extracurricular activities outside?
Well,
of
no,
his
the religious. No,
beliefs?
that's it. Like I'm not
Oh,
going to
okay.
get involved in that. I am.
Yeah.
I'm trying to separate the active from the art or the.
Yeah, I'll.
Listen, all I know
That's
is
that's a whole big discussion. There are some people that
It
will
is,
avoid certain people's movies because of
Yes.
their politics, and they'll say, well, because their politics influences the types of movies that they want to make, and so
But you know what? The one thing I have to
there is a
I
little
could-
bit of crossover.
I can definitely say that, but I don't think that like when Tom was doing this, it seemed like he was very genuine in
Yeah.
thanking everybody for audience people coming out to see the film
Right.
as well as everybody who helped make it. You know, so I that was different. I did not expect it at all.
Oh, not at all. You don't see it too often. It came off as genuine.
It did.
So
Yeah.
I like that. I actually like that. I don't know that I would want to see that. I don't know that I would want to see that in every film
Right.
because then it might be just, you know,
But I think because of the fact that this
Fake, I
movie
think.
was like held off for so long,
Yeah.
knowing that they really were trying to push this thing for people to see it in theaters, and all of last year, all we got for a lot of different film companies that they were releasing films at the same time in the theater as well as at home to watch, to keep people away from going into the movie theaters. But like this movie was made to see in the theater, hands down.
Oh yeah, yeah. I have this discussion with my grandson on occasion where he watches a film on his phone, and I'm like, that doesn't count. He
All you're
goes,
doing is just listen.
I'm like, that doesn't count.
If you're watching to just see what happens,
Yeah,
yes, you can watch that. But to get like a full experience of, I would say most films, you have to enjoy them in
yeah,
the movie theater.
yeah. I mean, I enjoy the big screen. I don't mind watching a movie on television.
No, the convenience of watching things at home.
Yeah.
Listen,
But
nowadays,
if I watch a movie, if I'm forced to watch a movie on,
oh, you'd shoot yourself.
well, I
You
wouldn't.
wouldn't last.
Well, I wouldn't be able to check it off in my book as being seen. I would. To me, it would not qualify
So
because your eye cannot pick up enough detail to, in my opinion, to enjoy the film.
well,
All you're seeing is the broad strokes.
think about TVs 20, 30 years ago. Okay, when I was a kid growing up in the late 80s, early 90s, like my mom and I, we had a small TV. I want to say it was like 17 inches, something like that. TVs were not huge for a long period of
Sure.
time. So
Oh,
watching
before they got
watching
big
like
today.
VHS films, or when TVs were, or when you had like a movie station playing something at home, whether it was HBO or just even playing on a regular TV station. Like you saw, like it was small. Like it wasn't a huge experience. Now, fast forward so many years, you have these incredible home theater studios that people create. These giant televisions, sound systems, sound bars, digital surround sound. Like you have everything that these movie theaters have, and it's amazing. People are making movie theaters in their homes, right? Like, which is incredible.
Yeah.
I would love to have something like
Oh
that.
my God. I
Personally,
can tell you right
it
now.
would be great.
I hit lotto. Not only are me and Chris buying the Sayville movie theater, but I would still also have
Like my own personal
I would
theater.
have my own personal theater in my house.
But seeing the films at home, you can get a really good home experience watching a film,
Especially on the ginormous TVs. they make
especially
today.
on big TVs today. Having said that, there is still something extremely special about watching a film in a theater
Yes.
with other people experiencing something for the first time.
However, sometimes there's been a few times where we've gone to the movies where the only other people that in the theater have been each other. Or
happens.
whoever was with our group.
That happens.
Anyway, it's either me and Chris and one or two or three other people, and
Yeah.
we're the only ones in there.
And you know what? I'm okay with that.
pretty
I'm okay
funny.
with that too.
Now, there's one thing. It was in my head, and I was trying to remember what I want to talk about. There was one thing in the movie that I thought was really funny, is that the entire mission of what they have to do is very reminiscent of the plot in the original Star Wars blowing up the Death Star. They got to go through
This canyon.
this canyon that's lined with
Turbo lasers.
turbo lasers.
Well, like
and
it
stuff.
wasn't turbo lasers. It was like rockets. These laser guided rockets and everything. These missiles that are all pointed up though.
Yeah.
So they had to stay below
Stay below it.
radar so that they wouldn't get struck at.
And then they had to get to basically the porthole.
It's only 2 meters wide.
Yeah, and they got to shoot. Well,
They gotta hit
they had
two.
They had to do two steps. They had to do the step of first blowing open the cover, so that way it exposed the actual hole, and then shoot like a missile down in there that goes down. And if you just if you just want to remember the visual of this in Star Wars, where they have the screen up there and they're showing what to do, it's like it goes in and goes boop, 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 all the way down, and it blows up the whole thing. And it's just like, I'm like, oh my God, this is Star Wars.
It was very reminiscent, and I don't know if that was done on purpose. I would really like to hear from either the director or anyone on the writing staff. Was that something that they were thinking
and
about
it would
as
be
they
it
did
would be hard to say that the people doing that movie would be like, oh my God, I never realized that how similar it is to Star Wars.
And listen, the only thing
Because
you could
Star Wars, like I said, this is the line, before and after Star Wars. Everybody knows Star Wars. The entire point of every movie made after Star Wars was made was to make as much money as Star Wars.
And the only thing is too is like, can you think for these guys that are writing this story and this this mission, right? Are they thinking to themselves? Is it just so ingrained, like in like the back of your mind and your psyche, that you come up with this design and you're not even thinking of A New Hope,
Right.
yet like if someone were to say it to you, you're like, oh, you know what? Yeah, it really is. It's almost like it's not like a deja vu, but it's kind of like you just, it's so ingrained in the back of your head that you don't even think about, you're not actively thinking about it. It's just
Right.
passive in the background and then kind of just seeps into your story
Right.
somehow.
But then I think what nailed it home for me was at one point
The visual, right?
The visual,
The graphic visual that they were showing
yeah,
was so
very
similar.
reminiscent. But then there's one part where one pilot says to the other pilot, "Stay on
on target."
And I'm
I'm
like,
this-
come on,
No,
stay on
right.
target,
Yeah.
stay. I'm like, that is like, someone will say, well, that's what pilots say to each other. I'm like, well, guess what? The pilots in Star Wars said that, exactly.
Well,
I'm like, okay.
but that's what I mean. Like, you're starting to come up with now multiple lines or ideas from Episode 4.
Yeah,
and it's like,
I'm like,
there's got to be and listen,
Is it
I don't
No,
mind.
it's not wrong.
No.
I'm just, to me, I was
And it
more-
doesn't detract
I
from
was
the
like,
film.
wow, it's like we're watching, we're watching Star Wars.
But it was just such a, and of course, it's like, F-18 jets, like kind of like
Right.
X-wing.
And I'm not
like
saying
they're
that
flying through.
it's not like they stole.
they didn't steal
the,
it,
right?
no.
I'm just like, to me, it was like, wow, that's like similarity.
I'll say if it was a nod, it's a cool nod,
Yeah.
and it was well done. The other, one of the last things I really enjoyed about this film is that they're not telling you who the enemy is. They never once.
Oh yeah.
They never
No,
they never once
I think
mentioned
I remember
who the
going to
enemy
you at some
is.
point. I went to Chris. I said, so do we know what country they're in?
No, and you know what?
And you don't.
In a time where we are right now with everything with the world, I'm okay with that.
Oh, well, you know what? I'll be honest with you. People are so sensitive now about being portrayed the bad guy that if you actually named a country,
But that's it.
that country
Would be pissed,
would be pissed off, and
and they're not going to play the film. They
Right.
might not play the film in
right.
their country
and now you
for that
can't,
reason.
and now you can't do it.
Right.
And then if you make up a country, that just seems idiotic.
Right.
Like you just.
But this to me was the best way around it, because the way that they talked about the mission,
Mm-hmm.
they never had to say really. They got around saying which country it was.
Right. It wasn't important.
No, it
what
wasn't.
country it was.
I think that's the point.
Yeah, it could be. It's an interesting omission to go out of your way to not say.
And you know when else they did that? The original 1986 Top Gun film. Those MiG fighters that they were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you know where they're from.
where they're from.
It's not China.
Well,
Could it be China? Could it be
and
Russia?
I'll be honest with you. Like the way they, I think it was in both movies. The way like the bad guys are dressed, they look like they work for the Empire. You know what I'm saying? like they're all in black. And the planes look darker. The interiors look darker. Everything's in black. I mean, it looks like you're fighting the Empire. It really does. It's funny. They really put in. They give you. They had the sense and aura of evil.
I
Around
did.
them.
I did want to just mention that though, because I thought that was. I thought that was a nice little trick. Because there's no need to mention it. It's not going to do anything to the story at this point in time. Like we're not specifically telling a World War I or World War II story where we know who the Axis and the Allies were. We're
Right.
not telling a story or a war in Iraq where you know who we're going after, right? Like this is, it's a made up
Right.
war battle. So there's no
Yeah.
who are you going to name as the bad
Right,
guys?
but I could see it, the boardroom conversation.
Oh, 100%.
Because originally it was probably going to be whoever, and somebody said, "Oh, we can't do that." Whoever's
I don't-
gonna
but you
get
know
pissed."
what, though?
Well, let's
I don't
make
know
it
if
these
they-
people instead. No, they're going to get pissed.
But see, I don't think they did that. I honestly intentionally think that when they wrote this,
From
they
the
wrote it
beginning.
from the beginning without
Ambiguous.
having
Okay.
a country name. Because if they did that in '86, I think they can do that now.
Okay.
And to me, it's like and for the writers, they probably said it doesn't serve any purpose to piss off another country for no reason.
Right. Well,
as
also
selecting them as the enemy.
Yeah, but they're more. I think their major concern is not that the country would be pissed at them, but the fact that the country
Wouldn't air the movie.
wouldn't air the movie.
Yeah.
So, and if it affects the money,
Yeah.
That's the number one driving force.
But I don't think they were told to do that. Is what my point is. I think that was something that they consciously made an effort to
Yeah.
not name a country as the villain in the story. And then one shocking thing that ends up happening towards the end of this film. One, they fly an F-14 when they get onto one of the bases, but before they get there, they make it look like Cruz he sacrifices himself to save Rooster,
Yes.
and it looks like he dies for a split second. And you're like, nah, that can't be. Like, there's too much time. First of all, there's too much time left in the movie. Like,
Yeah,
that can't,
yeah.
it can't be the end, right? And then, of course, Cruz is down, he ejects out of the plane, and you just see him when he lands. I don't think you don't see him easing down in the parachute. He just ends up down at one point in
Yeah.
time
Well,
on
I
the
mean,
ground.
they show him on the ground waking up.
Yeah, that's right. And then at some point in time, he's getting hunted, but then Rooster comes and finds him.
Yeah. Now, how exactly would Rooster be able to find him?
He might have had a tracker on him.
Okay, because otherwise he's just following the plane that's following him.
No, they probably have like personal trackers or something
Oh,
like that.
so this is something. How is one plane able to sneak up on another plane? Don't they know when there's a plane coming? Don't they have like their radar?
Certain technology, yes, but depending on like where you're hiding, like if you could hide behind another person's signature, I think it depends on like
Right.
proximity. Like you can sometimes fool the radar.
Okay, because like Rooster shot down the guy that was about to shoot Tom Cruise, and if you're the guy that's about to shoot Tom Cruise, and you know there's a plane, you're more worried about the plane. You're not worried about the guy on the ground. So it's like and then the other part, where I think the final dogfight, when not Val Kilmer, somebody comes in. Oh, the other hotshot pilot who didn't make it to the team,
Yes.
saves the other guy. He's trailing the plane that's about to shoot.
Right. He just pops in.
He pops in, and I'm like, wouldn't have they shown up? Wouldn't have it shown up on radar? Like,
I mean, it's quite possible that it was, yeah.
like the guy would oh, there's a guy on my tail. Wouldn't he know that without having to look around?
Unless he was flying low to the ground at first
Yeah.
and then made his way up. Because if you're flying below a certain point, then radar might not pick it up.
Gotcha. Okay.
Again, got to make movie magic. So
Right. No, they got to sit there and say, they got to be able to get in there. But you like when they were flying the mission to blow up the Death Star, they knew those other planes coming. They're like, okay, those planes are on their way. Like they were like
Right.
way out. They're like, oh, there they are. But they're not going to get here for a couple minutes.
Right.
So I'm just sitting there like, I wasn't sure if that was just one of those
There definitely
nice
been
conveniences.
Yeah,
and like,
it could-
it's
it
hard.
could
It's hard
absolutely
for
be.
planes to sneak up on other planes when everybody knows where everybody is. Kind of. I thought.
yeah, no, I don't disagree. There could have been that there, but I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think I'm not dwelling on that.
Yeah, it
to-
makes it's a plot dynamic. I'm like, okay, I could let that slide because this was one of those movies where there wasn't really a whole lot for me that I had to let slide.
Yeah.
Except for I thought the very convenience of Jennifer Connelly's character. And at the end of the day, I'll be honest with you, I don't know that the movie needed that
the love story.
the love story. Like
I feel like it was just because it was repeating the first film.
But
of
it makes it
having
more
one.
well-rounded. Blah 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 blah. But I felt like it was more of a distraction than something that enhanced what everything that was going on. I felt like it was a distraction from what the movie was about, and I don't know that it really served much purpose.
I think she at one point drags out of Tom what the issue is with him and Rooster. Right? Like why does Rooster like basically hate you?
Gotcha. So maybe So
and
maybe
I think that was like I think she drags out of him where it's like, he's the one who held him back from the Navy from a couple of years, held his application,
Yeah,
and it held him
gotcha.
back where he could have been further in his career. But what Rooster doesn't know is that Cruz, Maverick does that because he promises his
Meg
Meg
Ryan,
Ryan,
right.
who dies off screen, she dies of cancer, that I would protect your son.
okay. So she's like the person there to Tom Cruise in touch with
To-
his feelings and
Well,
get
to
get
push
through
his
barriers
character.
and get
Yeah.
the thing right. Okay, as
Yeah.
opposed to him, doing it by himself or watching Dr. Phil or whatever, trying to figure it out.
I'll tell you though, overall, I thought this movie was really well done. This was one of the movies that I could not wait to watch this
I
year,
enjoyed it.
and I really thought they did a good job. Just the cinematography for
It was
me
fun.
was great. I love the flying sequences, just so much better than '86. Just enough nostalgia. They had the football game this time on the beach rather than the volleyball game. But just Bob, right?
Bob?
Call sign Bob. His name was Bob. This was the one guy who was seemed like the nerdy guy in the movie.
Oh,
but
yeah.
this was Bill Pullman's son.
Oh, okay, right,
In the
right,
credits,
right.
we see his name.
Yeah. Right.
Oh, what was that? I can't remember this kid's name, but I just remember
Oh.
Pullman was his name, and it's Bill Pullman's son. We know that for a fact.
That's funny. One of my, one other thing I want to one of the most enjoyable scenes in the film for me was when nobody could do the run,
You knew Tom was.
and Tom Cruise is like, "Well, I'm going to do the run, and
Yeah.
I'm going to do it even faster than what we've been trying to do." So if
But he
can-
was also supposed to be let go. Like he was basically fired from that position, right? Like,
Yeah.
Cyclone, which was John Hamm's character, basically told him like
You're
you're
done.
out.
Right.
And then the next morning, Maverick shows up, and all of a sudden, like there's an unauthorized plane that's like leaving,
Yeah.
and it's Maverick, and he does
he
it.
does the run, and he is just like, to me, it reminded me of when I'm on a Star Wars pod racer and I am trying to get the best time possible, and you are straining and into every single turn and move because you want to get the fastest time possible. There's no letting down, and he's just like,
No,
tight,
the
tight,
expressions,
tighter.
like the expressions and everything was
Yeah.
great in the
Yeah.
cockpit. Like it all
Yeah,
looked
no, that
so
that to
good.
me was the most exciting part of the film, was when he was like, "Oh shit!"
That
he's gonna
was
do it.
that was one of my favorites.
Yeah, that
and
was
like
that.
and the fact that like he lowered the time to what he told all of them.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I like that a lot. I thought that was good. Yeah, no, really, really enjoyable film overall, guys. If you haven't seen it yet, go see it. Please see it in the theater. I think you'll thank us. Definitely will.
yeah. I would say it was a lot of fun. I think it was well made. I'm leaning towards 3 stars. I don't know if it's a super solid 3-star movie, but I'm gonna give it 3. I'm gonna give it 3 stars.
That's a good mark from John.
I'm gonna give it 3
That's a
stars.
good mark.
It was good. The original, I only give like 2.5.
It's okay.
Maybe 3 because of the time that it was made. A little, it was like, you gotta keep in mind, the people that do things first get extra credit, because there's nothing worse than someone saying to me, and Chris will feel this way too. It's like, somebody who just starts getting into movies now says, well, how can you watch Star Wars? It's, it's so archaic. And it's like, no, they did it first.
Pay respect to that.
Like
They paved the way.
somebody who watches Halloween and go, oh, it's like every other slasher movie. No, every other slasher movie is like that because of Halloween. The guy who does it first was an innovator. Somebody who did something that nobody ever did before, an original idea, and then everybody else who copies them, even if they're great copies, they're still copies. You gotta pay respect to the roots, to the guys who did it first. And I think Top Gun is one of those movies that probably did for flight films, like that type of jet fighting films.
Yep.
I think it brought it to the it was the first movie that brought it to the next level.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it set the tone, set the bar for the next series of films that would come out and try to do some type of like dogfighting with jets.
Right, exactly. So you gotta give credit where credit is due.
Absolutely. So guys, I think with that we're gonna say goodbye.
I think so.
Gonna finish off. All right, everyone. Thank you guys so much for watching, listening.
Yep.
Really appreciate it, guys. Keep supporting us all around. We actually just got on iHeartRadio. We got our podcast
All right.
put out there. You have no idea what's going on with that.
I know what a podcast is. That's what people
There
can
you
only
go.
listen, and they can't see the things that we do. Like if I do this, they can't see that. They just, they just hear that I did something.
But it's just more ways for everyone to watch us, or I should say, listen to us. So
Cool.
thank you guys all so much. Take care.
Cheers.
Cheers.